Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to Boring History for Sleep, where we gently peel back the layers of the past not to thrill or excite, but to offer a quiet drift into forgotten worlds. Tonight we journey to a landscape of unforgiving extremes to the American Wild West of 1886-1887. It was an era where every breath was a negotiation with nature's raw power, where life itself was etched against a backdrop of sweeping droughts and record-breaking blizzards. As the world outside quiets down, allow your mind to softly drift as we step into the sensory-rich challenges and routines of daily existence, forcing a profound adaptation to the brutal cold of the frontier. Your eyes open slowly, grudgingly, to a world of muted half-light within your tiny cabin. The air that fills your lungs isn't just cool, it's sharp, crisp enough to make your nose sting with each tentative breath. This isn't the gentle chill of a modern morning you understand. This is a pervasive, immediate sensory reminder of a cold that has seeped into every fibre of your being, a constant presence that never truly leaves even indoors. You lie still for a moment, gathering your thoughts, or perhaps just summoning the courage to move. Your bed is simple, a wooden frame protesting slightly as you shift its straw-filled mattress, rustling with a dry, papery sound. Heavy layers of wool and whatever animal hides you could acquire are piled high, offering a fragile barrier against the encroaching chill. But you know the truth, the fire went out hours ago, its embers long since surrendered to the night. The indoor temperature is now little better than outside, merely a shield from the wind, not from the cold itself. You might glance towards a window if you're fortunate enough to have one made of glass. It would be frosted over completely, perhaps adorned with delicate, intricate patterns of ice nature's artistry. You might even find it beautiful for a fleeting moment, a quiet piece of visual poetry in the desolate expanse. But that beauty is a stark reminder, a chilling declaration of just how utterly cold it is beyond your thin walls. The delicate patterns are not merely decorative, they are symbols of the frost's pervasive grip, a silent testament to temperatures that could kill. You take another slow breath, the air still biting, and the inevitable moment of leaving your makeshift cocoon looms. When you finally decide to step out from under those heavy covers, the air feels like it could shatter around you, a palpable shock to your system. It bites at any exposed skin, making it sting with an immediate intense burn, then rapidly go numb with an alarming swiftness. It's a visceral, unforgettable sensation, a daily jolt that clarifies your place in this unforgiving world. Your cabin, typically small, maybe 14 by 16 feet, functions as a single, multifunctional room. The walls are usually made of logs meticulously stuffed with mud, moss or clay to block the drafts. If you're on the treeless plains, your shelter might be a soddy constructed from thick blocks of sod. These sod houses are excellent insulators, keeping the interior surprisingly stable against both summer heat and winter cold, a brilliant adaptation to local resources. However, you quickly learn the trade-off: dirt constantly sifts down from the ceiling, a fine, gritty rain that settles on everything, and heavy rains can cause the roof to slowly dissolve, turning your sanctuary into a muddy mess. The cold boards beneath your feet send a fresh shock up your legs, even through your thickest wool socks, an unpleasant constant reminder of the pervasive chill. Every morning the act of starting a fire isn't just a chore, it's a desperate race against frostbite, a daily battle for warmth and survival, where the stakes are incredibly high. You manage to get the fire going, coaxing the tiny flame into something more substantial, feeding it carefully. But even with the fire roaring, or at least flickering valiantly, another reality sets in. If your chimney isn't perfectly constructed, and on the frontier perfection was a rare luxury, your cabin soon begins to fill with a thin haze of smoke. It's not an alarming thick cloud, but a persistent, slightly irritating presence clinging to the air, stinging your eyes just a little and leaving a faint, acrid scent on everything. You quickly learn to accept this, perhaps even ignore it. It's a fair trade, you tell yourself, not freezing to death. The alternative is far worse, and so you simply breathe through the smoky air, understanding that a certain level of discomfort is an unavoidable part of staying alive out here. It's the frontier's version of a primitive air purification system, only less effective and more immediately noticeable. This constant battle against the elements often reminds you of the clever ingenuity of those who truly understood the land, like the builders of dugouts and sod houses. While your log cabin provides shelter, you know that those thick earth walls offer superior insulation, maintaining a remarkably stable interior temperature that protects against both the extreme cold of winter and the sweltering heat of summer. It's a testament to adaptation, to using what the land provides to create a sanctuary, a profound understanding of nature's strengths and weaknesses. You might find yourself envious of their relative warmth, even with the occasional dirt sifting down from their ceilings. You learn quickly that efficiency in heating is directly tied to the quality of your shelter, and a soddy might just be the best defence against the frigid embrace of the plains winter. As the cabin slowly begins to warm, a different set of sensory experiences takes over. It's time for breakfast, a ritual often as sparse as it is vital. You might scoop water, probably collected from a nearby stream, if it hasn't completely frozen over, or more likely melted from the snow you brought in yesterday. On a small stove you place a pot of dried beans that have been soaking overnight, their rough texture softened by the water. If you're particularly fortunate, you might have a small piece of salt pork to add the precious fat rendering down, filling the cabin with the rich, savoury smell of beans and pork. This aroma, simple as it is a profound comfort, a promise of warmth and sustenance in a world that offers little else. It's a smell that speaks of survival, of calories, and of holding on for another day. Your winter diet, you quickly learn, is severely monotonous. Forget fresh vegetables or variety. Those are luxuries of warmer months or distant, more civilized places. Your meals are centered around preserved meat, salt pork, which you've already come to know, intimately smoked venison. If you or a neighbour were successful hunting in the fall, or dried beef, tough but nourishing. Alongside these are root vegetables, potatoes, carrots, turnips, carefully stored in a root cellar, their earthy scent a reminder of the harvest past. Staples like dried beans, corn and flour are your caloric backbone, providing the essential energy your body needs to fight the relentless cold. Every meal is a practical exercise in basic nutrition, designed to provide calorie-dense fuel for your body's internal furnace, not a culinary delight. You're not eating for pleasure, you're eating for survival. Perhaps the most ingenious and vital survival food adopted directly from indigenous peoples is pemmican. You know, it's a mixture of dried meat rendered fat and sometimes dried berries, a compact nutrient-dense package. It's not gourmet fare by any stretch, but it offers dense, long-lasting nutrition, crucial for sustaining life through the harshest conditions, or during long treks when fresh food is impossible to carry. You chew on it slowly, feeling its richness, understanding that this simple, almost bland concoction is pure, unadulterated energy, a marvel of frontier engineering that has saved countless lives. You might think of it as the ultimate energy bar, only far less appealing to the modern palate, but undeniably effective. You finish your meal, the warmth of the beans and the subtle saltiness of the pork a welcome sensation in your stomach. The lingering taste, though simple, is deeply satisfying. As you wipe your mouth, you know the day has just begun, and the internal warmth you've just acquired will soon be put to the test. The cold outside still waits, demanding your respect, and the next set of daily routines focusing on personal care and the constant need for preparedness already beckons. As the warmth from your meagre breakfast settles in your thoughts, turn to the morning ritual of preparing yourself for the day. You reach one hand out from under the covers again, and instantly reflexively regret it. The air bites with renewed ferocity, and you quickly pull your hand back, remembering the sting from earlier. This isn't a mistake you make often anymore. You've learned to keep your clothes in bed with you overnight, tucked into the foot, or folded carefully beside you, preventing them from becoming ice-cold fabric that would send another shockwave through your body. It's a small but significant hack, one of many you adopt to make life just a fraction less punishing. You pull on your long johns, the thick wool or flannel feeling almost warm against your skin, even if it's merely body heat you've preserved. Personal hygiene, you quickly discover, is severely limited by the realities of water scarcity and freezing temperatures. Daily washes are confined to small quantities of melted snow, carefully heated on the stove, or painstakingly rationed well water, usually cold, offering a bracing, almost painful sensation against your skin. This isn't a refreshing splash. It's a quick utilitarian scrub focusing on necessity rather than luxury. A full-body bath is an infrequent, almost mythical event, often postponed until spring. Over months, this leads to an accumulated layer of grime and a distinct communal odour that you eventually become accustomed to barely noticing it on yourself or others. Cleanliness, you realise, is a distant third to warmth and survival. Nobody bothers with fancy soaps. A simple lye soap, if you have it, is a harsh but effective tool against the build-up of dirt. You're not clean, not by modern standards, but you're clean enough to stave off the worst of the itch to make it through another day. Your clothing isn't just fabric, it's your primary defence, your personal armour against the elements. Strategic layering is paramount, beginning with those long johns, providing a crucial base layer that traps warm air against your skin. This isn't about fashion, it's about engineering your personal microclimate. And the miracle fabric of frontier life you learn with profound appreciation is wool. Wool maintains its insulating properties even when wet, a quality that can literally mean the difference between life and death. You shudder to think of cotton in winter. Once wet from snow or sweat, cotton loses all insulating properties and actually draws heat away from your body, becoming a deadly liability. You'd rather face a hungry wolf than a soaking wet cotton shirt in a blizzard. Over your long johns you layer a heavy shirt, often wool or flannel, then a wool vest, and finally a thick wool coat. If you're truly fortunate, your coat might be lined with fur, offering superior warmth, a dense animalistic defence against the biting wind. Your trousers are heavy wool, sometimes reinforced with leather chaps for extra protection against the elements and rough work. On your feet you wear several pairs of thick wool socks, crucial for protecting your extremities, tucked into sturdy waterproofed leather boots. For your hands, mittens are overwhelmingly preferred over gloves. They allow your fingers to share warmth, huddling together against the cold, a small act of camaraderie within your own body. And then there's your head. An enormous amount of body heat escapes through your head, a fact you feel acutely every time you venture outside bareheaded. A hat is indispensable. Fur hats with ear flaps are ideal, offering maximum warmth, transforming you into a slightly ursine figure, but a warm one. Sometimes you augment this with a wool scarf, wrapping it around your neck and face, creating a primitive balaclava that protects against the wind's relentless scour. Every piece of clothing is a deliberate choice, a calculation, a barrier between your fragile warmth and the deadly cold. After a day's work, any moisture from snow or sweat needs to evaporate from your layers. You hang them near, but not too near the stove, letting the gentle heat dry them out. Damp clothing isn't just uncomfortable, it can be deadly, inviting hypothermia if you put it back on. This constant vigilance, this meticulous attention to your gear is not merely a habit. It's a life-saving discipline, an ongoing negotiation with a pervasive, inescapable cold. With your layers of wool and hide, your body now a fortress against the external chill, your mind turns to the daily labour that defines existence on the frontier. Getting a fire started each morning isn't merely a task. It's a desperate race against frostbite, a ritual performed with an intensity that borders on reverence. You arrange the kindling, meticulously dry twigs and bark, then add slightly larger sticks. Your fingers already growing stiff from the cold, despite your layers, fumble slightly as you strike a match. The tiny flame, impossibly fragile, dances in the frigid air, and you cup it with your hands, sheltering it, breathing life into it as if it were a newborn. In this moment, you understand with profound clarity that fire isn't just warmth. Fire is life. It's the difference between enduring and succumbing, a primal act of creation against the encroaching darkness and cold. Fuel sources, you learn, vary wildly depending on your location. If you're lucky enough to be near a forest, wood is your primary fuel, but wood requires endless labour, felling, chopping, splitting, stacking. But for many, especially on the vast treeless plains, wood is a luxury and impossibility. Here a brilliant, ubiquitous alternative exists: buffalo chips. These are the dried dung of buffalo, and later cow chips from the enormous cattle herds. You might initially find the idea unappealing, but necessity quickly redefines your sensibilities. These chips, once dried by the sun and wind, burn hot and steady, emitting surprisingly little smell, certainly less than a smoky, poorly vented wood fire. They are a resourceful solution to severe scarcity, a lifesaver that literally keeps you from freezing and allows you to cook your meagre meals. You gather them by the bushel, your hands growing raw from the cold and the rough texture, but with a deep sense of gratitude for this unexpected abundant fuel. It's a testament to the frontier spirit of adaptation, making do with what nature provides, even if it's not what you'd conventionally choose. Outdoor chores, particularly tending to essential livestock, quickly become exhausting work, a daily test of endurance. You rely on these animals for milk, meat and labour, so their survival is inextricably linked to yours. This means breaking ice sometimes inches thick from water. Troughs are tasks that demand significant physical effort, your axe ringing against the frozen surface. You carefully distribute rationed feed, knowing that every stalk of hay, every kernel of corn is precious and must last until spring. As you work your fingers and toes, despite your heavy wool mittens and boots, begin to ache with cold, a deep persistent throb that radiates through your limbs. The biting wind on the treeless plains seems to cut through your layers of clothing, as if they're nothing, making merely stepping outside a painful and perilous act. The wind's ancient song is a constant mournful reminder of nature's raw, untamed power, a sound that gets into your bones and lingers in your mind. Preparing for blizzards is another critical, physically demanding responsibility. You learn to string a rope from your cabin door to the barn, a literal lifeline to follow, when visibility drops to zero, when the world outside becomes a swirling, blinding whiteout. You haul in extra fuel stacking buffalo chips or split wood near the stove, making sure you have enough to last for days, perhaps even a week. You check your food supplies mentally, calculating how long your dried bean, salt pork and root vegetables will last, assessing your chances of survival should the storm rage for an extended period. This preparation isn't a suggestion, it's a commandment etched into your very being by the unforgiving realities of the frontier. Winter work is physically demanding, yes, but it also requires careful pacing to avoid excessive sweating. You know that once activity stops, sweat-dampened clothing could freeze against your skin, a dangerous consequence that makes every movement a calculated effort, every swing of the axe or pitch of hay a measured expenditure of energy. The wild frontier teaches you a brutal efficiency, a respect for every calorie burned and every drop of sweat produced. Beyond the immediate chores of fuel and livestock, the rhythm of your days is punctuated by indoor tasks, essential for both sustenance and mental fortitude during the long hours of confinement. Mending clothes, patching holes in your heavy wool trousers or darning socks becomes a quiet meditative act. Each stitch is a small victory against decay, extending the life of crucial garments. You might spend hours making candles, dipping wicks into rendered tallow, the faint smell of animal fat filling the cabin, knowing that these handmade lights are your only defence against the absolute darkness that descends each evening. Knitting warm socks or mittens provides not only practical items but also a sense of purpose. Your hands busily creating something vital while your mind can wander. Preparing food, though often monotonous, fills a significant portion of your day, from grinding corn to rehydrating dried vegetables. These are not hobbies. They are vital contributions to the family's survival, filling the long hours when outdoor work is impossible due to the sheer ferocity of the cold. But not all winter labour is confined to the home, for some specific industries leverage the cold itself. Logging, for instance, becomes more feasible in winter. Frozen ground makes it easier to transport heavy timber, as sleds can glide over compacted snow and ice, where wagons would bog down in mud during warmer months. You might see lumberjacks bundled against the cold, felling massive trees, their axes ringing sharply in the still frigid air, their breath turning to clouds of mist. Another crucial winter industry is ice harvesting. From frozen lakes, hardy individuals cut massive blocks of ice, perhaps 2 feet thick or more, using long saws. These blocks are then stored in insulated ice houses packed with sawdust to be used for cooling food and drink during the summer months. It's a testament to ingenuity, turning the harsh conditions into a source of valuable resources, showcasing how certain tasks were uniquely suited to the cold months, a pragmatic embrace of the season's unique opportunities. Trapping animals for their valuable winter furs provides another crucial income stream, a way to turn the brutal conditions into a source of potential modest prosperity. The furs are at their thickest and most luxurious in winter, fetching better prices from traders. You might set traps along frozen creeks or in sheltered groves, checking them daily, knowing that a successful trapline could mean the difference between just getting by and having a small surplus for essential supplies. It's a solitary, often dangerous pursuit, requiring intimate knowledge of the land and animal behaviour, but the reward can be significant. This adaptive labour strategy highlights the resourcefulness required to extract a living from the unforgiving frontier, transforming a period of hardship into one of opportunity for those brave and skilled enough to seize it. Childhood in this era, you quickly realise, is defined by a rapid integration into household and survival chores. Children aren't merely playthings, they are indispensable contributors to the family's resilience. As soon as they are capable, they learn practical skills, gathering firewood, helping with food preparation, tending to younger siblings, feeding chickens. They quickly adopt clever hacks like keeping tomorrow's clothes tucked into the foot of their bed overnight, a tangible lesson in proactive survival strategies learned at an early age. The pervasive cold and the harsh realities of winter leave an indelible sensory impression on children, who grow up keenly aware of the frost, the biting wind, and the constant battle for warmth. Their understanding of resource value and the direct immediate consequences of environmental conditions on their daily lives is instilled early, shaping their future resilience, making them self-reliant beyond their years. Education often adapts to these seasonal rhythms. Many frontier schools operate primarily in winter, when children are not needed for outdoor farm work, their hands freed from the demands of planting and harvesting. Summer, conversely, is dedicated entirely to agricultural labour. For isolated families, winter becomes a period of concentrated home education, focusing on reading, writing, ciphering, and practical skills directly applicable to frontier life rather than abstract academic pursuits. These lessons aren't just about knowledge, they're about survival. Play and leisure activities, though limited, often involve storytelling games and simple crafts, like whittling or making dolls from scraps. These activities intertwine entertainment with learning, contributing to family cohesion during the long confined evenings, when the wind howls its lonely song outside, a constant reminder of the wild, untamed world beyond the cabin walls. These deeply personal struggles and the sensory realities of daily survival, which you're now intimately familiar with, were merely the individual manifestation of broader systemic forces at play. They were the visible tips of an iceberg, a macro context that fundamentally shaped the Wild West you inhabit. As you navigate the daily battle for warmth and sustenance, you begin to grasp the larger overarching structure of this harsh reality. The frontier of 1886 to 1887 was dominated by a brutal, unyielding hierarchy, where human existence was fundamentally subservient to nature's power. This humbling reality continuously dictated the terms of survival and prosperity, a constant, undeniable truth that superseded all human ambitions. Before the catastrophic winter, the open-range cattle industry represented the dominant economic power. You recall hearing tales, almost myths, of ranchers who accumulated vast fortunes by leveraging unfenced grasslands. This system, however, though it created immense wealth for a few, also established a fragile economic apex perched precariously on the whims of an untamed environment. Individual settlers and homesteaders like you occupied a lower, far more vulnerable rung of this hierarchy. Your existence is a relentless struggle for basic sustenance, your position defined by limited resources, and the sheer grit required to carve out an existence from the raw earth. You're constantly aware that your survival depends more on your own two hands and the cooperation of your immediate neighbours than on any distant economic or political structure. The devastating winter that is now unfolding around you acts as a profound reordering agent, a levelling force that cares nothing for human wealth or social standing. It indiscriminately destroys fortunes and exposes the fundamental fragility of man-made economic structures. It compels a forced reckoning with nature's ultimate authority, reminding everyone from the lowliest homesteader to the most powerful cattle baron who truly holds control. You realise there's a de facto fixed destiny at play here, an unspoken rule that implies an individual's survival, and prospects are intrinsically tied to their initial resources, their geographical location, and most critically their innate ability to adapt or be broken by extreme environmental conditions. Those who came unprepared, or those whose dreams were built on a foundation of unacknowledged environmental risks, are the first to fall, leaving behind abandoned homesteads and shattered hopes. In this landscape, the virtual absence of formal governmental support or relief efforts becomes glaringly apparent. There is no cavalry arriving with supplies, no distant bureaucracy offering aid. Instead, communities rely on self-organisation and mutual aid, a vital network of support that underscores a profound power vacuum. Here, nature's law prevails, raw and unfeeling, and collective ingenuity, mutual reliance and sheer stubbornness are the primary safeguards against overwhelming odds. The great die-up, which you've heard whispered about in hushed tones, is rendering many powerful cattle barons masterless in an economic sense. Their vast unmanaged herds, once the source of their wealth, are now frozen monuments to their hubris. This catastrophe is forcing a dramatic, irreversible shift from vast untamed operations to more controlled, carefully prepared and smaller-scale ranching. It's fundamentally altering the region's economic landscape, forcing an evolution in how humanity interacts with this unforgiving land, leaving you to wonder what new struggles and adaptations lie ahead. The foundational realities of this untamed land revolve around its core economy, and the stark realities of resource management, a lesson you're learning with every frigid breath. The pre-winter economy of the Great Plains, you understand, was largely based on the open-range cattle industry. It was a grand, almost romanticised vision. Vast, unfenced grasslands providing free grazing for millions of cattle. But this system, as the current winter is brutally demonstrating, proved utterly unsustainable and tragically vulnerable to environmental shocks. It was a house of cards built on the assumption of endless benevolent nature, an assumption that is now shattering around you. For individual settlers like yourself, true currency isn't gold or silver, or even paper money, which is scarce and often distrusted. Instead, it's meticulous self-sufficiency, measured in stored provisions, carefully preserved foods, and your unwavering capacity for self-repair. Your wealth is counted in jars of pickled vegetables, smoked meats hanging in the cabin, and the ability to mend a broken tool or repair a leaky roof. This self-reliance is supplemented by a robust informal system of bartering and communal sharing. You trade a bag of flour for a cured hide, a few hours of labour for assistance with a stubborn plough. It's an economy of necessity driven by immediate needs rather than abstract profit, where trust and reputation hold more value than any coin. The resourceful use of buffalo chips, and later cow chips, as a critical, readily available fuel source on the treeless plains is a perfect example of this frontier economy of adaptation. You've become adept at spotting them, gathering them, and using them to fuel your stove. It's an ingenious solution to severe resource scarcity, directly fueling your daily battle for warmth and cooking. Without them, survival on these vast treeless expanses would be all but impossible. It's a resource that literally keeps you alive, reminding you that true wealth here is defined by practical utility. You recall the whispers, the stories that circulated during the summer preceding this devastating winter. It had been unusually hot and dry, a relentless sun baking the earth. You remember the ominous sight of prairie fires, vast uncontrolled blazes that destroyed natural forage, scorching acres of vital grazing land. This critical resource depletion had set the stage for widespread animal weakening even before the first snowflake fell. The cattle, already stressed and underfed, were ill-equipped to face the coming onslaught. This was the opening act, the prelude to the tragedy, a clear warning sign missed or ignored by many, highlighting the peril of environmental illiteracy in a life-or-death context. The land was screaming its warnings, but not everyone was listening. The Great Die-Up. An event now unfolding with horrific consequences is killing hundreds of thousands of cattle. You hear tales of them freezing, standing up like statues, silent monuments to the cold, or piled against fence lines where they had tried to escape the wind. This unprecedented catastrophe is leading to the bankruptcy of countless ranchers and irrevocably transforming the cattle industry. The era of the open range is dying, with the cattle giving way to managed grazing, with winter feed and fenced pastures. It's a brutal, unforgiving lesson in ecological limits and economic sustainability, a forced evolution that you're witnessing firsthand, shaping the very future of the land. The need to make the feed last until spring for your own modest livestock is a constant hard calculation. You're always balancing the immediate needs of your animals against the long-term imperative of resource preservation for your own survival. Every handful of hay, every scoop of grain is weighed and considered. It's a daily exercise in resource management, a desperate hope that you have enough to see your animals through to the thaw. And when your own resources dwindle, community-based, sharing resources, knowledge and labour becomes a vital, informal economic system. It ensures collective survival through a pragmatic, reciprocal network of mutual support that transcends individual ownership. Your neighbour's surplus might be your salvation, and your own strength might be theirs tomorrow. It's a shared struggle, a collective understanding that in this harsh environment, mutual aid isn't charity. It's the most effective form of currency. As you live through these days, you come to understand that this winter of 1886, 1887 is not just a harsh season. It is an unprecedented environmental disaster, a period of brutal cold and blizzards that is actively rewriting the history of the Wild West. You hear stories impossible to verify but chillingly real of temperatures dropping as low as 46 degrees below zero, numbers that freeze your very imagination. This isn't just cold, it's an alien, life-stealing cold that warps the landscape and tests the very limits of human endurance. You feel it in your bones, in the way the air crackles, in the way your breath instantly crystallizes into a cloud of white. The relentless winds on these treeless plains amplify the cold to an almost unbearable degree. They don't just blow. They scream, they howl, cutting through layers of clothing like they're nothing. Even your carefully constructed wool fortress feels flimsy against their unseen blades. Merely stepping outside, even for the briefest chore, becomes a painful and perilous act. The wind's ancient song is a constant mournful drone, a chilling symphony that gets into your very soul. It's a reminder of nature's raw power, a sound that underscores your own vulnerability, making you feel small and insignificant against the vast indifferent force. You find yourself hunching instinctively, pulling your head deeper into your collar, as if you can somehow shield yourself from its invisible assault. Blizzards, when they arrive, are not just snowstorms, they're apocalyptic events. You witness 16 inches of snow in as many hours, a furious, relentless downpour of white that transforms the familiar landscape into an alien, undulating expanse. The wind whips this snow into massive drifts that can quickly, completely bury a house, swallowing buildings whole, leaving only the faintest hint of their existence. The world outside becomes unrecognizable, a disorienting, featureless void where visibility drops to zero and travel becomes instantly suicidally deadly. You realize how quickly your surroundings, which you thought you knew, can become utterly hostile, a white suffocating trap. The deep snow, a blanket of death for the herds, covers all forage, leading directly to the great die-up of cattle. You hear grim reports from those who venture out of cattle, frozen standing up like statues, or stacked against fence lines where they had tried to escape the wind. It's a horrifying testament to mass starvation, an exposure, a wholesale slaughter brought about by nature's brutal hand. The sheer scale of the death is almost unimaginable, turning the landscape into a macabre graveyard, each frozen carcass a symbol of a shattered dream. This isn't just economic loss, it's a profound visual and emotional shock, a stark reminder of the fragile line between life and death. Human survival is also constantly threatened. Frostbite is an ever-present danger, leading to the loss of fingers, toes, ears, noses, limbs and digits turning black and falling away, a grim, permanent disfigurement that serves as a constant reminder of the winter's cruelty. And then there's the deadly disorientation of blinding, whiteout conditions, where people perish just feet from their own homes, losing their way in the swirling vortex of snow, succumbing to the cold and confusion. You learn quickly that a short walk to the barn can become a fatal journey if you're not prepared, if you don't have your rope lifeline, if you underestimate the sheer power of the storm. Nature, you learn, offers subtle warnings. Early bird migrations, animals growing thicker coats than usual. But many newer settlers didn't recognize these signs, highlighting the peril of environmental illiteracy in a life or death context. They were accustomed to different rhythms, different signals, and in this alien land their lack of understanding proved fatal. The indigenous peoples, however, understood the language of the land, their survival depending on generations of accumulated knowledge, a wisdom you wish you possessed more fully. And in this desperate situation, the lack of formal relief efforts forces communities into radical self-reliance against these lethal winter storms, where individual ingenuity and collective action are the only buffers against overwhelming natural forces. You understand that a helping hand from a neighbour isn't charity. It's a shared investment in survival, a pragmatic recognition that in this environment you truly are all in it together. Within these overarching environmental and economic structures, the very fabric of society, its culture, etiquette and intricate relationships became a vital, often unspoken guide to navigating the harsh realities of frontier life. You quickly learn that while the elements might be your primary adversary, the subtle nuances of human interaction are just as crucial for your well-being, though in a different, less immediate way. Communication in isolation, you discover, is a critical lifeline. The rare and welcome visits from neighbours, perhaps once every few weeks, if the weather permits, bring genuine joy and vital breaks from the crushing monotony of your confined existence. These aren't just social calls, they are profound affirmations that nobody survives alone. You exchange news anxieties and small comforts, reinforcing the unspoken truth that your survival is intertwined with theirs. A visitor isn't just a guest. They are a connection to the outside world, a reaffirmation of the human community in a vast empty landscape. An unwritten yet profoundly rigid code of hospitality governs these interactions. Hospitality was never refused. You understand, because turning someone away could mean their death. This isn't mere politeness. It's a pragmatic act of collective survival, transforming generosity into a life-saving imperative. Offering warmth, food and shelter to a traveller is not just kindness. It's an investment in your own future, a recognition that one day you might be the one in desperate need of aid. The exchange of information is a vital network covering everything from the state of food stores and animal health to distant news rumours and the condition of the trails. It's a fundamental form of mutual support far more critical than mere socialising a shared understanding that knowledge is as vital as firewood. Silence, you find, is a constant companion, especially during the long dark nights. It fosters introspection, sometimes a comforting self-reflection, other times a heightened, almost unnerving awareness of the pervasive natural world beyond the cabin walls. You listen to the creaks of the logs settling, the wind whistling through unseen cracks. The distant howl of a coyote sounds that speak of a vast, untamed wilderness pressing in on your small, fragile haven. This silence can be a friend or an enemy depending on your state of mind, amplifying both your solitude and your connection to the primal world around you. Collective activities, even in their limited forms, provide crucial psychological relief and reinforce communal bonds. Storytelling, sharing what tales you know, becomes a cherished evening ritual. Music, perhaps a fiddle played with a mournful, beautiful tune, or simple folk songs sung together, breaks the quiet. Games, often simple card games or improvised wordplay, offer structured forms of shared expression. Amidst hardship, a way to pass the interminable hours and lift spirits. These shared moments are not frivolous. They are essential for mental well-being, for staving off the insidious grip of cabin fever. You also learn to appreciate the language of the land, a non-verbal communication system deeply understood by experienced settlers and especially by Native Americans. This language encompasses subtle weather signs, the behaviour of animals, the shift in the wind. You learn to read the patterns in the snow, the flight of birds, the way the clouds gather. This ecological literacy guides critical survival decisions, telling you when to hunker down, when to prepare for the worst, or when a brief window of milder weather might allow you to venture out. It's a form of communication far older and often more reliable than human words, a profound connection to the natural world that speaks volumes to those who know how to listen. Storytelling, you realise, is not just a pastime, but a central cultural discipline, particularly for Native American tribes. During the long winter evenings, huddled around fires, these narratives are vital for passing down cultural knowledge, historical accounts, and moral lessons. They profoundly shape the social landscape, transforming a period of forced inactivity into one of deep learning and cultural reinforcement. You might hear whispers of these tales even if you don't fully understand their nuances, appreciating the ancient wisdom embedded within them. These stories are living histories connecting generations and preserving identities in a world that constantly threatens to erase them. The winter count tradition of Plains tribes exemplifies this meticulous historical discipline. You learn, perhaps through observation or brief interaction, that these are pictorial histories painstakingly documented on buffalo hides. Each symbol represents a significant event of a particular year, creating a disciplined living chronicle that connects generations. It's a way of remembering, of ensuring that the past informs the present and guides the future, a testament to resilience and cultural continuity. These winter counts are not mere records. They are sacred documents, embodiments of collective memory and survival. Settlers too combat cabin fever through structured indoor activities that serve as both essential practical labour and performances of mental resilience. Reading, if you have any books or old newspapers, becomes a cherished escape, allowing your mind to travel beyond the confines of your small cabin. Intricate crafts like quilting, knitting, or weaving not only produce necessary items but also provide a focused outlet for your hands and mind, warding off the creeping sense of boredom and despair. Music, whether it's playing a harmonica, strumming a banjo, or simply singing folk songs and hymns, provides entertainment and preserves cultural heritage. These communal activities foster group cohesion during prolonged periods of isolation, transforming quiet evenings into moments of shared solace and expression, reminding you of the enduring human spirit even in the face of immense hardship. Weather reading, you quickly learn, becomes an essential empirical cultural discipline for everyone on the frontier. It relies on generations of observation passed down through mnemonic sayings like "Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky and morning sailors take warning." You become an amateur meteorologist, constantly scanning the sky, feeling the subtle shifts in the air, interpreting animal behaviour. These observations are not idle curiosity. They are vital for predicting conditions and guiding critical survival choices. Is it safe to venture out? Will a blizzard hit tonight? The answers often lie in the subtle language of the environment. A vernacular you are quickly mastering, for your very life depends on it. This intimate connection to the weather isn't just a skill, it's a profound cultural practice deeply embedded in the rhythm of frontier life. For indigenous communities, there's an even deeper layer to this seasonal discipline. Specific sacred stories are ritually designated to be told only when snow is on the ground. This profound cultural practice aligns their narratives with nature's deep seasonal rhythms, imbuing winter with a spiritual significance that transcends mere hardship. These aren't just stories. They are sacred rituals connecting the community to their ancestors, their land and their spiritual beliefs, strengthening their collective spirit during the coldest, darkest months. You might sense this reverence, this deep connection to the earth, as you observe their quiet, patient resilience. It's a powerful reminder that culture isn't just about what people do, but about how they perceive and interact with the world around them, shaping their very ability to survive. Beyond the practical and social disciplines, you become acutely aware of the spiritual frameworks and superstitions that underpin life on the frontier, especially during the relentless grip of winter. For indigenous belief systems, everything is deeply entwined with a reverence for nature and ancestors. The land's cycles, the shift in the wind, the omens whispered by animals. These are not random occurrences, but spiritual messages guiding daily life and survival. You might not share their specific beliefs, but you cannot help but respect the depth of their connection to the earth. A connection that seems to grant them a profound resilience against the very forces that threaten your existence. Their worldview provides a coherent spiritual map for navigating the chaos of the natural world, a comfort and a guide that many settlers detached from such ancient ties often lack. You yourself begin to feel a distinct, almost spiritual resonance in the strange, heavy silence that comes before a big snow. It's a profound quiet, as if the world is holding its breath, a moment of primal awe for nature's immense, uncontrollable power. The air grows still, the sounds muted, and an expectant hush falls over the land, a premonition of the coming storm. It's in these moments that you feel most connected to something larger than yourself, a humbling recognition of your place in the vast, indifferent cosmos. This isn't necessarily a religious feeling, but a deep, inarticulate sense of wonder and fear before the raw majesty of the natural world. And then there's the hypnotic effect of serene winter beauty. You've seen it perhaps on a still sun-drenched day after a fresh snowfall, the landscape transformed into a glittering, pristine expanse of white, silent and breathtaking. It's beautiful, undeniably so, but it's a deceptive spiritual allure, a siren call that tempts the weary. You know the stories, the grim warnings of those who succumbed to its charm, who felt compelled to rest just for a moment in the snow, drawn by an irresistible urge to merge with the quiet, cold embrace. It's a fatal temptation, a final surrender to the elements, and you fight against its pull, recognizing its deadly beauty. The ancient song of the howling wind is a constant, formidable reminder of larger uncontrollable forces. It's not just a physical phenomenon, it's a living presence, a voice from the wild that fosters humility and a deep, often fearful interconnectedness with the untamed environment. You hear it at night pressing against your cabin walls, whispering secrets of distant, snow-choked valleys. It's a sound that makes you feel both intensely alone and profoundly connected to the vast untamed wilderness. It's the voice of nature, powerful and indifferent, and you listen to it with a mixture of dread and awe, a constant echo of the challenges you face. The act of building a fire, you realize, especially in winter, takes on almost sacred significance. It's more than just providing physical comfort. It represents life itself. Each spark, each flickering flame is an echo of ancient elemental acts of creation and preservation against the encroaching darkness and cold. You tend it carefully, almost reverently, understanding that this fire is your hearth, your heart, your very survival. It's a primal connection to humanity's earlier struggles, a testament to the enduring power of warmth and light in a world consumed by cold and shadow. Yet amidst all this struggle, nature also offers subtle shifts, moments of hope. The quality of light shifts ever so slightly, a barely perceptible lengthening of the days, a promise of spring written in the subtle variations of the sun. The return of certain night birds, their calls breaking the winter silence, are tiny fragile harbingers of change. These aren't just biological events, they are seen as promises written in the sky, embodying profound hope and a resilient faith in the unwavering cycles of nature. They are a spiritual reassurance that the brutal grip of winter will eventually yield, that life will find a way to return, bringing with it the promise of warmth and abundance. This quiet faith in nature's patterns becomes a vital source of resilience, a reason to endure one more day. In this unforgiving environment, the very structure of human relationships, particularly love, marriage, and family life, also adapts to the harsh realities. You understand that marriage, far from being a purely romantic ideal, is fundamentally a pragmatic alliance essential for shared labour and mutual support. In this harsh environment, a partner isn't just a beloved. They are a necessary collaborator, someone whose strength, skills and resilience directly contribute to your collective survival. The decision to marry is often a sober assessment of shared capabilities and mutual benefit, prioritizing a functional partnership over fleeting romantic ideals. You observe that those who endure tend to be those who function as a cohesive unit, their individual strengths complementing each other in the arduous daily grind. Family units, as you've already noted, form the bedrock of individual existence. Within the intense isolation of the winter cabin, the family provides not only labour, but also an indispensable source of companionship and emotional sustenance. Every member, from the youngest capable child to the oldest elder, contributes vital effort. This shared burden, this constant interdependence, forges incredibly strong, often unspoken emotional bonds. The warmth of the family circle, however small, becomes a vital defence against the psychological toll of isolation, a shared haven against the indifferent vastness outside. Women's agency, though constrained by societal norms, is paradoxically amplified by their indispensable roles. Their efforts in managing the home economy, ensuring food preservation, and producing essential textiles are not merely domestic chores, they are foundational pillars of family survival. Without their diligent labour, without their resourcefulness in stretching meagre supplies and mending worn garments, the family's chances of making it through winter would plummet. These tasks, while limiting personal freedoms in some respects, grant women a profound, undeniable authority and respect within the household, their contributions directly equating to life itself. They are the silent architects of survival, their hands constantly at work to keep the family intact. Romantic love, while undoubtedly present in human hearts, often remains private or confined to fiction in its overt expression. The relentless daily grind for survival leaves little room for elaborate courtship rituals or grand romantic gestures. Instead, love is often expressed through quiet acts of care, a warm cup of coffee, offered without asking, a moment of shared silence by the fire, a steady hand during a difficult chore. These are the deeper, more profound manifestations of affection forged in the crucible of shared hardship and mutual understanding. The stark realities of life here tend to overshadow the more overt, idealized expressions of romance, demanding a different, more resilient form of connection. Children's practical learning and chores are not just about discipline. They're essential for their preparedness for future roles in the family's ongoing struggle for existence. From a young age, children learn the vital skills of frontier life, from fire starting to animal care, from gardening to basic repairs. This early integration reinforces a profound sense of shared fate within the family unit, teaching them that their individual well-being is inextricably linked to the collective effort. They're not just being educated, they are being moulded into resilient, capable survivors, each contributing their part to the family's future. Family rituals, reading aloud, making music, playing simple games during the long winter evenings, become more than just entertainment. They are vital emotional anchors, reinforcing bonds and providing essential mental and emotional sustenance against the pervasive isolation and monotony. These shared moments, however simple, create pockets of warmth and connection, helping to ward off cabin fever and strengthen the family spirit. They are small acts of cultural preservation, ensuring that even in the harshness, humanity's need for story song and shared joy finds its expression. The generational impact of individual actions becomes starkly evident on the frontier, particularly in the critical transmission of survival knowledge and skills. Ancestral wisdom passed down through stories, practical demonstrations and keen observation directly saves lives and builds collective resilience. You recognize the value of the old-timers, those who have seen multiple winters and learned the subtle cues of the land. Their warnings about changing weather patterns, their knowledge of foraging, or their methods for winterizing a cabin aren't just advice. They are life lessons vital for the new generation's continued existence. The weight of this legacy, this continuous thread of survival knowledge, rests heavily on the shoulders of each generation. In such a tight-knit and interdependent community, scandal takes on a very specific meaning. It doesn't necessarily involve grand moral failings in the traditional sense, but rather manifests as a failure to contribute to the collective effort, or a blatant breach of the mutual aid compact. To hoard resources when others are starving, to refuse help to a neighbour in need, or to shirk your responsibilities in communal tasks, these are the true transgressions. Such actions lead to social ostracism, effectively jeopardizing one's own precarious safety net. In a world where survival depends on cooperation, selfishness is a self-inflicted wound, and the community's judgment is a powerful, often brutal form of control. During severe winters, community bonds are tested to their limits. The brutal cold and scarcity compel individuals to prioritize shared well-being over personal hoarding. You might witness a neighbour, despite their own dwindling supplies, sharing a sack of flour or some dried meat. This isn't out of naive charity, you understand, but because they knew next time it might be them needing help. It's a pragmatic, reciprocal understanding, a deeply ingrained social contract forged in the crucible of shared hardship. The lines between individual and collective blur, replaced by an acute awareness of mutual dependency. This shared struggle, the constant reliance on one another, creates bonds far stronger and more profound than any superficial connection, an enduring legacy of resilience born from necessity. Transitioning from these deeply personal and communal structures, you begin to see how these were often in direct response to the unyielding power dynamics, rudimentary legal mechanisms and existential threats that defined governance and human struggle on the untamed frontier. What you consider government in this remote corner of the world is less about formal institutions and more about the raw forces that shape daily life and death. The rules are carved not in stone but in ice and snow, enforced not by judges but by the relentless fury of nature. The most dominant power on the frontier, you realise, is nature itself. It exerts absolute control over human life and economy, a power that makes kings of men, and then just as swiftly turns their fortunes into bankruptcies. You've seen or heard how easily a cattle baron's wealth measured in vast herds can be wiped out in a single brutal blizzard. This isn't a power that can be negotiated with, bribed or overthrown. It is unyielding, indifferent, and absolute, demanding constant respect and meticulous preparation. Your very existence is a testament to its pervasive influence, its capacity to shape destinies with a single shift in the wind. Local economic powers and those with specialized knowledge, the old-timers who understand the land, the Native Americans, whose ancestral wisdom has been honed over centuries, hold significant practical authority over survival decisions. Their advice, their warnings, their methods often override any distant formal governance. When a severe winter hits, the man who knows how to find game or the woman who can preserve food efficiently becomes far more influential than any elected official. Their knowledge is currency, their experience a form of power that directly impacts your ability to survive. This informal hierarchy of knowledge and practical skill is the true governance system of the frontier, where expertise trumps status. The Great Die-Up, which continues to unfold with grim consequences, acts as a brutal realignment of economic power, dismantling the open-range system that once dominated the plains. It's forcing a dramatic shift to smaller, more managed ranching operations, demonstrating nature's ultimate control over man's ambitions. You're witnessing a wholesale transformation of an entire industry, a forced evolution dictated by the environment. The economic power shifts from the absentee owners of vast unmanaged herds to those who can adapt, who are willing to invest in feed and fences, recognizing the new harsh rules of the game. It's a profound lesson in the fragility of unchecked expansion and the necessity of sustainability. The absence of formal government, as you've keenly observed, means communities must rely on self-organization and mutual aid. This creates a de facto power structure where the laws of winter survival are paramount. There are no sheriffs patrolling vast snow-choked distances, no judges to adjudicate disputes over dwindling resources. Instead, collective agreements, unspoken understandings and reciprocal obligations form the bedrock of social order. The power lies in the community's ability to cooperate to enforce its own codes of conduct and to ensure that everyone pulls their weight for the collective good. Your very safety depends on this informal yet powerful governance system. The shift from vast open ranges to fenced pastures fundamentally alters control over land and resources. It's a move from a collective unregulated system where land was essentially free for the taking to private managed control. This transition, while born of necessity after the catastrophic losses, reshapes the landscape, literally dividing the open expanse into individual holdings. It redefines ownership, creates new boundaries, and fundamentally changes how land is used and valued. This isn't just an economic shift. It's a social and political restructuring, laying the groundwork for a different kind of frontier, one less wild and more ordered, though still utterly at the mercy of the elements. Formal legal systems, you quickly understand, are distant, almost mythical entities. Your immediate survival is dictated by nature's law, the brutal, unforgiving consequences of cold hunger and isolation, and the unwritten pragmatic rules of community cooperation rather than individual rights or codified statutes. There's no court of appeals for frostbite, no judge to arbitrate a dispute with a blizzard. The environment delivers its own swift, undeniable justice. The idea of abstract legal principles seems almost laughable when you're battling for your next breath, when your entire focus is on getting through the next day. The true law out here is survival pure and simple, and it's enforced with absolute impartiality. You might hear about or even participate in community networks that parallel systems like the Gonengumi system from other historical contexts where collective responsibility is paramount. Checking on neighbours, sharing resources, assisting the vulnerable. These are not merely acts of kindness, but vital, mutually enforced social obligations. Failure to uphold these obligations can lead to severe consequences. Social ostracism or even endangerment, not just for the individual, but for the entire network. These are the unwritten laws of the frontier enforced by necessity and the raw judgment of your peers. Your standing in the community, your ability to rely on others is directly tied to your willingness to adhere to these unspoken rules. Public punishments on the frontier are often the immediate brutal consequences of nature itself. Frostbite disorientation leading to death starvation. These serve as stark, undeniable lessons for inadequate preparation or recklessness. You see the disfigured hands of those who misjudge the cold, hear the stories of those who wandered too far in a whiteout. These aren't sentences handed down by a judge. They are the immediate agonizing verdicts of the environment, universally understood and utterly unavoidable. The truth of one's preparedness is revealed by the environment, where failure means suffering or perishing, a direct, undeniable form of natural justice, more potent than any human court. The economic devastation wrought by the Great Die-Up acts as a powerful industry-wide enforcement mechanism. It's an unforgiving lesson that compels ranchers to adopt sustainable practices or face utter ruin. Nature in its brutal wisdom has forced an industry-wide reckoning demanding a fundamental change in how cattle are managed on the plains. Those who resist, who cling to the old ways, simply cease to exist economically. This isn't regulation from a government body. It's a profound, irreversible shift dictated by the environment itself, an unwritten law enforced by mass death and bankruptcy. From this crucible of experience, new weather law emerged, born from generations of observation and hard-won frontier experience. This isn't a statute book. It's a living, evolving body of knowledge passed down through whispers, warnings, and shared stories. It represents a de facto legal code for interacting with the environment, a set of crucial practical guidance that dictates when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for the deepest cold. You learn these rules not from textbooks, but from the land itself, from the wisdom of those who have survived understanding that disrespecting this weather law carries immediate and often fatal consequences. The shadow of death, you realize, is an ever-present tangible reality on the frontier, serving as nature's ultimate societal control. It is the unsparing consequence of disrespecting the environment's power or failing to prepare adequately. The great die-up of cattle isn't just an economic event. It's a mass death, a stark reminder of the fragile line between life and oblivion. This ever-present possibility of death shapes every decision, every action, forcing a constant state of vigilance. It makes the cold a formidable disciplinarian enforcing its rules with the highest possible stakes. There's a societal expectation of calm acceptance of fate, a quiet fortitude that permeates the frontier. You observe it in the stoic endurance against blizzards, a quiet determination in the face of overwhelming, uncontrollable forces. People don't rage against the storm, they hunker down, they prepare, and they endure. This acceptance isn't resignation, but pragmatic understanding of limits, a quiet strength born of necessity. It's a collective stoicism that allows communities to weather the unweatherable, to face unimaginable hardship without breaking. Death, you understand, is the ultimate punishment for complacency. It is particularly brutal for those who succumb to the hypnotic effect of winter's beauty, those who, overwhelmed by exhaustion or despair, wanted to rest just for a moment in the snow. You know the danger of such temptation, how the cold can lull you into a false sense of peace. The stories of those who never woke up serve as grim warnings etched into the collective consciousness. reinforcing the absolute necessity of constant vigilance. The grim discovery of bodies, sometimes just feet from their own homes, serves as a stark public reminder of the constant life-saving vigilance demanded by the brutal cold. These aren't just tragedies, they're object lessons enforcing caution, drilling home the profound importance of preparation and awareness. Each lost life, each frozen form whispers a warning to the living: do not underestimate the cold, do not wander unprepared, do not forget its power. These are the frontier's most effective sermons, delivered without words, but with undeniable impact. Honour, you find, is intrinsically linked to resilience, self-sufficiency and active contribution to the community. To be honourable here is to be capable, to be reliable, to be a productive member of the collective struggle. Failure due to unpreparedness or selfishness implicitly brings dishonour not just to the individual, but jeopardises the communal safety net for everyone. If you cannot pull your weight, if you are a drain on resources without contributing, your reputation suffers, and with it your ability to survive. Honour is a practical virtue, a measure of your worth to the survival of the group. The imperative to avoid frostbite and the visible permanent damage it causes serves as a direct physical punishment for any lapse in vigilance against the cold. A lost finger, a blackened toe, a scarred ear, these are not just injuries. They are public declarations of a moment of carelessness, a failure to heed the environment's warnings. You observe these disfigurements on others, knowing they are constant, painful reminders of the frontier's unforgiving nature. The desire to avoid such a fate is a powerful motivator, driving you to meticulous care in layering, to constant checks of your extremities, to an almost obsessive attention to protection against the chill. It's a vivid personal lesson in humility and respect for the elements. Amidst these grim realities, seeds of discontent, a form of peasant rebellion, or icky, begin to sprout, though not against human rulers, but against nature itself. Peasant suffering stems primarily from nature's excessive taxes, the catastrophic losses from extreme weather, the blizzards, the droughts, the unrelenting cold, rather than from human governance. These are taxes paid in livestock, in crops and lives. This widespread hardship, however, doesn't lead to despair alone. It forces innovation, compels adaptation, and ignites a collective will to overcome. The discontent is not an idle complaint. It's a powerful catalyst for change, a driving force behind human ingenuity. Collective action through mutual aid and cooperative survival strategies functions as a de facto rebellion against the overwhelming systemic hardship imposed by the environment. When neighbours band together to clear snowshare dwindling food stores or rescue trapped animals, they are in essence defying nature's attempt to isolate and conquer them. This isn't a violent uprising, but a quiet, powerful resistance, a collective assertion of human will against the indifferent forces of the wild. You participate in these acts, understanding that each shared effort is a small, significant victory against the crushing weight of winter. The severe consequences for those who fail in this constant struggle are destitution, forced abandonment of homesteads, and death. These represent nature's unforgiving punitive system, a final, irreversible judgment. You see the evidence of it in abandoned cabins, in plots of land left fallow, in the stories of families who simply disappeared, driven away by the unyielding land. This constant threat of failure breeds a unique form of discontent that, rather than dissolving into chaos, often fuels innovation and collective organisation. It effectively challenges the perceived status quo of nature's dominance, transforming societal practices, forcing new ways of living and thriving in this brutal landscape. The discontent isn't just about dissatisfaction. It's about the drive to overcome, to adapt, to prove nature wrong. And then there's the figure of the Ronin, the discarded warrior, which finds a haunting parallel in the economically outcast ranchers of this era. Ranchers worth fortunes in the fall were left bankrupt by spring, becoming masterless, as their economic base was annihilated by winter. Their vast herds, their symbols of wealth and power, were simply gone. leaving them without a means of livelihood, without a clear path forward. This is a direct parallel to the Ronin status, a warrior without a lord, a rancher without his cattle adrift and forced to make desperate choices. Their status arose directly from the catastrophic winter, which destroyed herds and rendered the open-range business model utterly obsolete. This wasn't a gradual decline. It was a sudden, violent upheaval, forcing them into profound struggles and desperate choices. Some abandoned the land entirely seeking new fortunes elsewhere. Others stayed attempting to rebuild from the ashes, facing a future fundamentally different from the one they had envisioned. The widespread presence of these economically discarded warriors created vast economic instability. Their plight reverberated through the entire region, forcing a radical restructuring of the entire Western economy and culture, tearing down the old ways and demanding new approaches to survival and prosperity. Those who remained in business, the survivors among the discarded warriors, did so by adopting new managed practices. They recognized the brutal lesson taught by nature and adapted, illustrating an innate ability to pivot and evolve rather than clinging to a defunct economic model. The days of unchecked open-range grazing were over. Instead, these resilient ranchers invested in fenced pastures, cultivated winter feed, and managed smaller, more sustainable herds. This wasn't just a business decision. It was a profound cultural shift, a recognition that the frontier had changed, and they too had to change to survive. It was a pragmatic response to an environmental disaster, a new form of warfare against the elements. The fading of the romantic image of the cowboy and the vast open-range herds symbolized the discarded and unsustainable nature of the previous frontier economic paradigms. The cowboy, once a symbol of wild freedom and boundless opportunity, was now faced with fences, blizzards, and the harsh realities of a changed landscape. This romantic image, so prevalent in popular lore, gave way to a grittier, more pragmatic reality. The dream of easy wealth on the open range was shattered, replaced by the sober necessity of hard work, careful planning, and a profound respect for nature's limits. The era you inhabit, therefore, is one of transition, a turning point where the old legends fade and new, more grounded realities take hold. Thus you begin to understand that survival in the brutal cold of the Wild West was not merely a physical endurance test, a battle against frostbite and starvation. It was a profound testament to human ingenuity, to the power of community resilience, and to a deep, often painful renegotiation of humanity's place within nature's unyielding domain. Every morning, fire, every shared meal, every frozen journey was a part of this ongoing negotiation, a constant dialogue between man and environment. This era, this winter, leaves an enduring legacy shaping not only the immediate future of the West, but also forging a collective memory of hardship and triumph for generations to come. You are living through history, a period that will forever mark the land and its people. As you reflect on the broad strokes of this harsh reality, your mind often returns to the intricate details of daily life, particularly the ways in which communities, both settler and indigenous, fostered social cohesion. The harshness of the environment paradoxically made human connection more vital, more profound. You learn to appreciate the quiet strength found in shared silences and the unspoken understandings that bind people together when words are scarce and energy is precious. Take, for instance, the subtle power of non-verbal communication. In a world where long distances and the demands of survival limit casual conversation, much is conveyed through observation. A nod, a shared glance, the way someone moves their hands while performing a chore. These are all forms of communication conveying a wealth of information about mood, needs, and intentions. You quickly become adept at reading these subtle cues, understanding that a tired slump of a shoulder or a slight tremor in a hand can tell you more than a string of words. It's a language born of necessity, refined by isolation, and deeply rooted in the shared experience of hardship. The act of hospitality, as you've observed, transcends mere social pleasantry. It's an almost sacred ritual, a contract of mutual survival. When a traveller, perhaps miles from their home, approaches your cabin through the snow, you open your door without hesitation. You offer what little you have, warmth from your fire, a share of your meagre meal, a space to rest. This isn't a choice, it's an obligation, a fundamental rule of the frontier. You understand that the roles could easily be reversed, and you would expect the same. This unspoken agreement forms a powerful social safety net, a bedrock of trust, in a world that offers little certainty. It's a bond forged in the crucible of shared vulnerability. The value of shared stories you find deepens beyond mere entertainment. They become a vital conduit for collective memory and community building. In the quiet of a winter evening, with the wind whispering outside, recounting tales of past experiences, triumphs over blizzards, encounters with wildlife, challenges overcome, serves to reinforce a shared identity. These narratives aren't just about entertainment. They are lessons, warnings, and celebrations of resilience. You listen intently, absorbing the wisdom and the human experience contained within each story, understanding that these shared narratives strengthen the bonds that tie you to your neighbours, making the isolation a little less profound. Even simple forms of communal music making, perhaps a fiddle tune or a harmonica, played by a skilled hand, create a powerful sense of unity. These melodies, often melancholy but always deeply human, offer a respite from the constant struggle, a moment of shared beauty in an otherwise harsh existence. You might not have much, but you have these moments of shared song connecting you to generations of people who found solace and strength in music. It's a reminder that even in the most arduous circumstances, the human spirit seeks expression, connection, and a touch of the sublime. These musical gatherings, rare as they are, become cherished memories, beacons in the long, dark winter nights. The specific nuances of daily life, then, are not just random occurrences, but finely tuned adaptations shaping your character and your understanding of the world. Take, for example, the sheer practicality of your clothing choices. You've moved beyond any notion of style or personal preference. Every garment is selected for its utility, its ability to keep you alive. The weight of your wool coat, the stiffness of your leather boots, the bulk of your mittens. These aren't inconveniences. They're essential tools in your survival kit. You learn to appreciate the feel of thick wool against your skin, the way it insulates, even when damp, a testament to its life-saving properties. Dressing becomes a deliberate, almost ritualistic act of preparing for battle against the elements, each layer a strategic defense. Food preparation, too, carries a profound weight. You learn to maximize every scrap, every calorie. The simmering stew perpetually on the back of the stove becomes more than just a meal. It's a source of constant warmth, a symbol of sustenance. You become an expert in stretching meagre ingredients and transforming dried beans and tough meat into something nourishing. The rich smell of your cooking, though simple, is a deep comfort, filling the cabin with a sense of homely warmth and security. You understand that every meal prepared is a victory, a tangible act of defiance against starvation, a testament to your resourcefulness. The ingenuity required for simple tasks like water management is another constant lesson. Melting snow for drinking, cooking, and limited hygiene is a daily chore, a test of patience and resourcefulness. You learn to conserve every drop, understanding its preciousness. You marvel at the sheer effort it takes to maintain this most basic of necessities, a stark contrast to the modern world where water flows effortlessly from a tap. This forced efficiency shapes your habits, instilling a deep respect for every resource, no matter how mundane. And as you settle into your routine, you develop a keen eye for nature's warnings. The subtle shift in the wind's howl, the way the snow forms certain, drifts the behaviour of birds seeking shelter. These are all indicators, messages from the environment. You find yourself scanning the horizon, watching the clouds, feeling the air, becoming an astute observer of the natural world. This heightened awareness isn't a leisure activity. It's a crucial survival skill allowing you to anticipate dangers and prepare accordingly. It's a quiet, ongoing dialogue with the land, a continuous lesson in humility and adaptation. Your senses, honed by the constant negotiation with the environment, become extraordinarily acute. The biting cold on your skin, the smoky tang in the air, the creak of the cabin logs, the rhythmic rustle of your straw mattress. These are not mere background details. They are the vivid textures of your existence. You become intimately familiar with the unique scent of burning buffalo chips, a dry, almost earthy aroma that quickly becomes associated with warmth and survival. These sensory inputs constantly reinforce your place in this rugged world, anchoring you to the present moment and the immediate demands of life. The concept of time itself also adapts to the frontier's rhythms. There's the ticking of the clock, yes, if you're fortunate enough to have one, but there's also the slow, deliberate pace of the seasons, the waxing and waning of daylight, and the immediate demands of the weather. Time is measured not just in hours, but in the progress of a chore, the duration of a blizzard, the stretch until spring. You learn patience, a deep, abiding patience, born of waiting out storms, waiting for snow to melt, waiting for the land to thaw. This isn't a frantic, hurried existence. It's a measured, deliberate pace dictated by nature's unyielding hand. The physical strain of daily life carves itself into your body. Your hands become calloused, your muscles ache from the constant labour, your skin grows dry and chapped from the exposure to wind and cold. You carry the marks of the frontier on your body, a testament to the continuous struggle for survival. These are not signs of weakness, but badges of endurance, evidence of your resilience. You sleep deeply exhausted by the day's demands, your body gratefully sinking into the straw mattress, seeking solace from the constant cold. Even in moments of rest, the environment subtly influences your thoughts. The long dark evenings encourage a certain introspection, a turning inward. You might spend time simply watching the fire, its flickering flames mesmerizing, listening to the quiet sounds of the cabin. These moments aren't empty. They are filled with reflection, with planning for the next day, with quiet contemplation of your place in this vast, indifferent landscape. The solitude can be profound, sometimes lonely, but also a source of inner strength, allowing you to connect with your own resilience. The constant need for self-sufficiency means that repair and maintenance become an ongoing part of your routine. A loose hinge, a crack in a tool handle, a tear in a blanket. Nothing is discarded lightly. You learn to mend, to fix, to improvise with whatever materials are at hand. Your cabin itself is a testament to this constant state of repair, a patchwork of fixes and reinforcements against the relentless wear of the elements. This continuous act of maintenance fosters a deep appreciation for your possessions, understanding that each tool, each garment is a crucial component of your survival system. In this environment, you understand the subtle distinctions between different types of cold. There's the crisp, dry cold of a clear winter morning, invigorating despite its bite. Then there's the damp, penetrating cold of a snowstorm, which seems to seep into your very bones, a heavy, oppressive chill. And finally, the wind chill, that vicious, invisible force that strips away warmth with terrifying efficiency, transforming moderate temperatures into deadly ones. You become an expert in recognizing these nuances, in understanding how each type of cold demands a different response, a different strategy for survival. This granular understanding is not just academic, it's a matter of life and death, informing every decision you make when venturing outside. Your connection to the land deepens in ways you could never have anticipated. You learn the topography of your immediate surroundings, not from maps, but through repeated travel, through memory of drifts and hidden ravines. Every tree, every rock outcrop, every frozen stream bed becomes a landmark, a point of reference in a landscape that can quickly become disorienting in a blizzard. This intimate knowledge is not passive. It's an active, constantly updated mental map crucial for navigation and survival, a personal chart etched into your mind. You read the subtle undulations of the snow, understanding where drifts will be deepest, where the ground might be more exposed. The cycle of resources, particularly firewood or buffalo chips, becomes a central preoccupation. You constantly gauge your reserves, always looking ahead, mentally calculating how long your current supply will last. Every clear day is an opportunity to replenish a race against the next storm. The simple act of gathering fuel takes on a ritualistic significance, connecting you directly to the land and its bounty, however sparse. You learn to spot the best fuel to work efficiently, to carry heavy loads with a grim determination, knowing that your warmth, your meals, your very life depend on this continuous effort. You also become adept at improvising and problem solving. A broken tool isn't a reason to despair, but an invitation to creativity. You learn to patch, to bind, to reshape. A discarded piece of metal might become a new hinge, a piece of rawhide, a strong binding. This constant need to make do, to adapt materials to new purposes, hones your practical skills and fosters a deep sense of self-reliance. It's a quiet form of ingenuity born of necessity, transforming you into a pragmatic engineer of your own survival. You learn to see potential in every discarded item, a potential for repair, for reuse, for extending its utility in a world where new goods are scarce and precious. The sounds of winter too become deeply ingrained in your consciousness. The mournful howl of the wind, sometimes rising to a shriek, other times fading to a low, guttural moan. The crunch of your boots on packed snow, the almost eerie silence that follows a fresh snowfall muffling all sound. The distant bark of a coyote, the rustle of dry grass beneath the snow. These sounds form the soundtrack of your winter, shaping your mood, reinforcing the isolation, yet also connecting you to the wild world outside your cabin walls. They are the constant, subtle reminders of nature's presence, an auditory backdrop to your daily struggle. Even the simple act of sleep is a different experience. You fall asleep quickly, your body exhausted by the day's labour, but the cold often disturbs your rest. You might wake frequently to adjust your blankets, to feel for cold spots, to listen to the wind. Sleep is not just rest. It's another strategic manoeuvre, a period of vulnerability where the cold could potentially creep in. You learn to sleep in your warmest clothes, sometimes even with your hat on, just to preserve precious body heat. Your dreams, too, might be influenced by the constant struggle, filled with images of warmth, of abundant food, of green pastures, a stark contrast to your waking reality. The psychological impact of living in such extreme isolation and monotonous conditions, what settlers often referred to as cabin fever, is a very real challenge. It combines the physical discomforts of winter with the mental strain of boredom and profound loneliness. You feel it in a restlessness that can't be easily shaken, a pervasive melancholy, or a heightened irritability. This is where communal activities, however infrequent, become so vital, where storytelling and music making offer crucial psychological relief. It's a testament to the resilience of the human mind, even when pushed to its limits, that you find ways to combat this internal foe, to keep hope alive even when the world outside seems to offer little. The sheer force of nature you're experiencing transcends mere weather. It embodies a raw spiritual power that both humbles and terrifies. The profound, strange, heavy silence that comes before a big snow isn't merely atmospheric. It feels like the earth itself is holding its breath, a premonition of immense, uncontrollable power about to be unleashed. You find yourself instinctively listening, your senses straining for any sign, as if nature communicates through this profound stillness. It's a silence that carries the weight of prophecy, a moment of primal awe that underscores your insignificance in the face of such overwhelming forces. The hypnotic effect of serene winter beauty, though deadly in its allure, is another manifestation of nature's deceptive spiritual power. A landscape blanketed in fresh, untouched snow, gleaming under a pale sun, can be breathtakingly beautiful. almost otherworldly. But you know that this beauty conceals a profound danger, a temptation to surrender to its quiet embrace. The stories of those who simply lay down in the snow drawn by a desire for peace and rest are not just cautionary tales. They speak to a spiritual seduction, a final fatal merging with the environment. You resist its pull, recognizing the inherent paradox of a beauty that promises oblivion. The persistent ancient song of the howling wind is more than just a sound. It's the voice of the wilderness itself, a constant, formidable reminder of larger uncontrollable forces. It fosters a deep humility, a sense of profound interconnectedness with an untamed environment that acknowledges no master. You hear its mournful cry at night, a sound that seems to penetrate your very bones, echoing the vast empty spaces beyond your cabin. It's a primeval melody shaping your spiritual landscape, reminding you that you are merely a transient guest in nature's grand domain, subservient to its will. Building a fire, as you've observed, takes on almost sacred significance in winter. It's an elemental act, a creation of warmth and light against encroaching darkness. Each spark struck, each log, added as a small act of defiance, a reaffirmation of life. It's a ritual that echoes humanity's earlier struggles, connecting you to ancient ancestors who also huddled around flickering flames for survival. The fire isn't just physical comfort. It's a spiritual anchor, a pulsating heart in the cold, dead landscape, a symbol of hope and perseverance. You tend it with care, almost reverence, understanding its profound importance. And yet, despite the overwhelming hardships, nature offers subtle signs of eventual renewal. The quality of light shifts ever so slightly, a barely perceptible lengthening of the days, a promise of spring written in the subtle variations of the sun. The return of certain night birds, their calls breaking the winter silence, are tiny fragile harbingers of change. These aren't just biological events, they are seen as promises written in the sky, embodying profound hope and a resilient faith in the unwavering cycles of nature. They are a spiritual reassurance that the brutal grip of winter will eventually yield, that life will find a way to return, bringing with it the promise of warmth and abundance. This quiet faith in nature's patterns becomes a vital source of resilience, a reason to endure one more day. These spiritual frameworks, whether explicitly held or implicitly felt, provide a necessary lens through which to interpret the harsh realities of the frontier. They offer meaning, context, and a sense of connection in a world that often feels arbitrary and cruel. They help you to understand that you are part of a larger ongoing drama between humanity and nature, a struggle that has shaped existence for millennia. The spiritual isn't separate from survival. It's deeply interwoven, offering both solace and a profound understanding of the forces that govern your world. The pragmatism that defines frontier life extends deeply into the realms of love, marriage, and family. You understand that marriage, far from being a purely romantic ideal, is fundamentally a pragmatic alliance, essential for shared labour and mutual support. In this harsh environment, a partner isn't just a beloved. They are a necessary collaborator, someone whose strength, skills, and resilience directly contribute to your collective survival. The decision to marry is often a sober assessment of shared capabilities and mutual benefit, prioritizing a functional partnership over fleeting romantic ideals. You observe that those who endure tend to be those who function as a cohesive unit, their individual strengths complementing each other in the arduous daily grind. Family units, as you've already noted, form the bedrock of individual existence. Within the intense isolation of the winter cabin, the family provides not only labour, but also an indispensable source of companionship and emotional sustenance. Every member, from the youngest capable child to the oldest elder, contributes vital effort. This shared burden, this constant interdependence, forges incredibly strong, often unspoken emotional bonds. The warmth of the family circle, however small, becomes a vital defence against the psychological toll of isolation, a shared haven against the indifferent vastness outside. Women's agency, though constrained by societal norms, is paradoxically amplified by their indispensable roles. Their efforts in managing the home economy, ensuring food preservation, and producing essential textiles are not merely domestic chores. They are foundational pillars of family survival. Without their diligent labour, without their resourcefulness in stretching meagre supplies and mending worn garments, the family's chances of making it through winter would plummet. These tasks, while limiting personal freedoms in some respects, grant women a profound, undeniable authority and respect within the household, their contributions directly equating to life itself. They are the silent architects of survival, their hands constantly at work to keep the family intact. Romantic love, while undoubtedly present in human hearts, often remains private or confined to fiction in its overt expression. The relentless daily grind for survival leaves little room for elaborate courtship rituals or grand romantic gestures. Instead, love is often expressed through quiet acts of care, a warm cup of coffee offered, without asking a moment of shared silence by the fire, a steady hand during a difficult chore. These are the deeper, more profound manifestations of affection forged in the crucible of shared hardship and mutual understanding. The stark realities of life here tend to overshadow the more overt idealized expressions of romance, demanding a different, more resilient form of connection. Children's practical learning and chores are not just about discipline. They're essential for their preparedness for future roles in the family's ongoing struggle for existence. From a young age, children learn the vital skills of frontier life, from fire starting to animal care, from gardening to basic repairs. This early integration reinforces a profound sense of shared fate within the family unit, teaching them that their individual well-being is inextricably linked to the collective effort. They are not just being educated, they are being moulded into resilient, capable survivors, each contributing their part to the family's future. Family rituals, reading aloud, making music, playing simple games during the long winter evenings, become more than just entertainment. They are vital emotional anchors, reinforcing bonds and providing essential mental and emotional sustenance against the pervasive isolation and monotony. These shared moments, however simple, create pockets of warmth and connection, helping to ward off cabin fever and strengthen the family spirit. They are small acts of cultural preservation, ensuring that even in the harshness, humanity's need for story song and shared joy finds its expression. The weight of clan identity, or the communal bond that defines existence here, is a powerful, almost tangible force. Individualism in the sense of absolute self-reliance is quickly suppressed by the undeniable truth that nobody survives alone. This fundamental reality fosters a powerful sense of collective identity, where your worth is often measured by your contribution to the group. You internalize the understanding that people who make it through are the ones who look out for each other. This isn't altruism, it's pragmatic survival, a deeply ingrained social contract. Your local community, whether it's your scattered neighbours miles apart or for Native Americans, your extended families clustered in winter camps, serves as the primary source of identity and reputation. Your standing, your ability to rely on others, is built on your reliability, your willingness to help, and your contribution to the common good. Mutual aid, therefore, isn't just a kind gesture. It's the very foundation of social order, forging exceptionally powerful, enduring bonds. These connections are stronger than any formal law, a web of reciprocal obligations that ensures collective survival against overwhelming odds. The generational impact of individual actions is nowhere more evident than in the critical transmission of survival knowledge and skills. Ancestral wisdom, the collected experience of those who have faced these winters before, directly saves lives and builds collective resilience. The knowledge of how to build a good soddy, where it finds shelter in a storm, how to preserve specific foods, these are not mere facts. They are legacies passed down through stories, practical lessons, and keen observation. You learn quickly to value the Council of Elders for their wisdom. Is a direct link to survival, connecting past struggles with present needs. Scandal on the frontier takes on a very practical existential meaning. It doesn't revolve around abstract moral failings as much as it does around a failure to contribute to the collective effort, or a blatant breach of the mutual aid compact. To hoard resources when others starve, to refuse to help a neighbour in a blizzard, or to shirk your responsibilities in communal tasks. These are the true transgressions. Such actions lead to social ostracism, a severe punishment in a world where isolation can be fatal. It jeopardizes one's own precarious safety net, reminding everyone that selfishness is a luxury no one can afford. During severe winters, community bonds are tested to their limits. The brutal cold and scarcity compel individuals to prioritize shared well-being over personal hoarding. You might witness an act of profound generosity. A family sharing their last bag of flour, a man lending his last pair of sturdy boots. This isn't out of naive charity, you understand, but because they knew next time it might be them needing help. It's a pragmatic, reciprocal understanding, a deeply ingrained social contract forged in the crucible of shared hardship. This constant, undeniable need for one another creates bonds far stronger and more profound than any superficial connection, an enduring legacy of resilience born from necessity. Transitioning from these deeply personal and communal structures, you begin to see how these were often in direct response to the unyielding power dynamics, rudimentary legal mechanisms and existential threats that defined governance and human struggle on the untamed frontier. What you consider government in this remote corner of the world is less about formal institutions and more about the raw forces that shape daily life and death. The rules are carved not in stone but in ice and snow, enforced not by judges but by the relentless fury of nature. The authority isn't found in distant capitals, but in the immediate demands of survival, in the wisdom of experience and in the collective will of those who simply refuse to be broken by the elements. The overarching power on this frontier, you realize, is not human-made law or political decree, but nature itself. It exerts absolute control over human life, and the economy a power that can with a single blizzard turn a cattle baron's fortunes into bankruptcies. This is a humbling, undeniable truth. A force that cannot be negotiated with, reasoned with, or overcome by sheer will alone. It continuously dictates the terms of survival and prosperity, establishing a hierarchy where humanity is always subservient to the raw, indifferent power of the wild. Your very existence is a daily negotiation with this ultimate authority, a constant act of deference and adaptation. Local economic powers and those with specialized knowledge, the old-timers who have seen many winters, the indigenous peoples whose ancestral wisdom has been honed over centuries, hold significant practical authority over survival decisions. Their understanding of the land, their ability to predict weather patterns, their skills in foraging and hunting often override the authority of any distant formal governance. When a severe winter hits, the man who knows how to find game or the woman who can preserve food efficiently becomes far more influential than any elected official. Their knowledge is currency, their experience a form of power that directly impacts your ability to survive. This informal hierarchy of practical skill and deep understanding is the true governance system of the frontier, where expertise trumps status and lived experience is paramount. The Great Die-Up is in effect a brutal realignment of economic power, dismantling the open range system that once dominated the plains. It forces a dramatic shift to smaller, more managed ranching operations, demonstrating nature's ultimate control over man's ambitions and economic structures. This isn't just an economic downturn, it's a wholesale transformation, a forced evolution dictated by the environment. The economic power shifts from the absentee owners of vast unmanaged herds to those who can adapt, who are willing to invest in feed and fences, recognizing the new harsh rules of the game. It's a profound, unsparing lesson in ecological limits and economic sustainability, shaping the future of the entire region. The absence of formal government, as you've keenly observed, means that communities must rely on self-organisation and mutual aid. This void of official authority creates a de facto power structure where the laws of winter survival are paramount. There are no sheriffs patrolling vast snow-choked distances, no distant judges to adjudicate disputes over dwindling resources. Instead, collective agreements, unspoken understandings, and reciprocal obligations form the bedrock of social order. The power lies in the community's ability to cooperate, to enforce its own codes of conduct, and to ensure that everyone pulls their weight for the collective good. Your very safety depends on this informal, yet incredibly powerful governance system, where the collective interest often supersedes individual desires. The shift from vast open ranges to fenced pastures fundamentally alters control over land and resources. It's a profound move from a collective unregulated system, where land was essentially free for the taking, to private managed control. This transition, while born of necessity after the catastrophic losses, reshapes the physical landscape, dividing the open expanse into individual holdings. It redefines ownership, creates new boundaries, and fundamentally changes how land is used and valued. This isn't just an economic shift. It's a social and political restructuring, laying the groundwork for a different kind of frontier, one less wild and more ordered, though still utterly at the mercy of the elements. It's a visible symbol of humanity's attempt to impose order on a chaotic world, even as nature constantly reminds them of its ultimate power. Formal legal systems, you've learned, are distant, almost abstract concepts on this frontier. Your immediate survival is dictated not by human laws, but by nature's law. The brutal, unforgiving consequences of cold hunger and isolation, and the unwritten pragmatic rules of community cooperation rather than individual rights or codified statutes. There's no court of appeals for frostbite, no judge to arbitrate a dispute with a blizzard. The environment delivers its own swift, undeniable justice, often with fatal results. The idea of abstract legal principles seems almost irrelevant when you're battling for your next breath, when your entire focus is on getting through the next day. The true law out here is survival, pure and simple, and it's enforced with absolute unyielding impartiality. You might hear about or even participate in community networks that share remarkable parallels with systems like the Goningumi system from other historical contexts where collective responsibility is paramount. Checking on neighbours, sharing resources, assisting the vulnerable. These are not merely acts of kindness, but vital, mutually enforced social obligations. Failure to uphold these obligations can lead to severe consequences, social ostracism, or even endangerment, not just for the individual, but for the entire network. These are the unwritten laws of the frontier, enforced by necessity and the raw judgment of your peers. Your standing in the community, your ability to rely on others, is directly tied to your willingness to adhere to these unspoken yet incredibly powerful rules. Public punishments on the frontier are often the immediate brutal consequences of nature itself. Frostbite disorientation leading to death in a whiteout starvation. These serve as stark, undeniable lessons for inadequate preparation or recklessness. You see the disfigured hands of those who misjudge the cold, hear the stories of those who wandered too far in a blizzard and never returned. These aren't sentences handed down by a judge. They are the immediate agonizing verdicts of the environment, universally understood and utterly unavoidable. The truth of one's preparedness is revealed by the environment where failure means suffering or perishing, a direct, undeniable form of natural justice, more potent than any human court. The economic devastation wrought by the Great Die-Up acts as a powerful industry-wide enforcement mechanism. It's an unforgiving lesson that compels ranchers to adopt sustainable practices or face utter ruin. Nature in its brutal wisdom has forced an industry-wide reckoning demanding a fundamental change in how cattle are managed on the plains. Those who resist, who cling to the old ways, simply cease to exist economically. This isn't regulation from a government body. It's a profound, irreversible shift dictated by the environment itself, an unwritten law enforced by mass death and bankruptcy. The frontier demands adaptation, or it demands your disappearance. From this crucible of experience, new weather law emerged, born from generations of observation and hard-won frontier experience. This isn't a statute book. It's a living, evolving body of knowledge passed down through whispers, warnings, and shared stories. It represents a de facto legal code for interacting with the environment, a set of crucial practical guidance that dictates when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for the deepest cold. You learn these rules not from textbooks, but from the land itself, from the wisdom of those who have survived understanding that disrespecting this weather law carries immediate and often fatal consequences. It's a code written in the landscape, enforced by the elements, and understood by all who seek to make a life in this unforgiving domain. The shadow of death, you realize, is an ever-present tangible reality on the frontier, serving as nature's ultimate societal control. It is the unsparing consequence of disrespecting the environment's power or failing to prepare adequately. The great die-up of cattle isn't just an economic event. It's a mass death, a stark reminder of the fragile line between life and oblivion. This ever-present possibility of death shapes every decision, every action, forcing a constant state of vigilance. It makes the cold a formidable disciplinarian, enforcing its rules with the highest possible stakes, a silent, omnipresent judge. There's a pervasive societal expectation of calm acceptance of fate, a quiet fortitude that permeates the frontier. You observe it in the stoic endurance against blizzards, a quiet determination in the face of overwhelming, uncontrollable forces. People don't rage against the storm, they hunker down, they prepare, and they endure. This acceptance isn't resignation, but a pragmatic understanding of limits, a quiet strength born of necessity. It's a collective stoicism that allows communities to weather the unweatherable, to face unimaginable hardship, without breaking a deep-seated resilience that defines the spirit of those who survive here. Death, you understand, is the ultimate punishment for complacency. It is particularly brutal for those who succumb to the hypnotic effect of winter's beauty, those who, overwhelmed by exhaustion or despair, wanted to rest just for a moment in the snow. You know the danger of such temptation, how the cold can lull you into a false sense of peace, a deceptive warmth just before the final sleep. The stories of those who never woke up serve as grim warnings etched into the collective consciousness, reinforcing the absolute necessity of constant vigilance. The frontier teaches you that to relax your guard even for a moment can be fatal. The grim discovery of bodies, sometimes just feet from their own homes, serves as a stark public reminder of the constant life-saving vigilance demanded by the brutal cold. These aren't just isolated tragedies. They're object lessons enforcing caution, drilling home the profound importance of preparation and awareness. Each lost life, each frozen form whispers a warning to the living. Do not underestimate the cold. Do not wander unprepared. Do not forget its power. These are the frontier's most effective sermons, delivered without words, but with undeniable, chilling impact, ensuring that the lessons of survival are never truly forgotten. Honour, you find, is intrinsically linked to resilience, self-sufficiency, and active contribution to the community. To be honourable here is to be capable, to be reliable, to be a productive member of the collective struggle. Failure due to unpreparedness or selfishness implicitly brings dishonour not just to the individual, but jeopardizes the communal safety net for everyone. If you cannot pull your weight, if you are a drain on resources without contributing, your reputation suffers, and with it your ability to survive. Honour is a practical virtue, a measure of your worth to the survival of the group. a testament to your commitment to the shared battle against the elements. The imperative to avoid frostbite and the visible permanent damage it causes serves as a direct physical punishment for any lapse in vigilance against the cold. A lost finger, a blackened toe, a scarred ear. These are not just injuries. They are public declarations of a moment of carelessness, a failure to heed the environment's warnings. You observe these disfigurements on others, knowing they are constant painful reminders of the frontier's unforgiving nature. The desire to avoid such a fate is a powerful motivator driving you to meticulous care in layering to constant checks of your extremities, to an almost obsessive attention to protection against the chill. It's a vivid personal lesson in humility and respect for the elements, a daily reminder that the cost of neglect is severe and permanent. Amidst these grim realities, seeds of discontent, a form of peasant rebellion, or icky, begin to sprout, though not against human rulers, but against nature itself. Peasant suffering stems primarily from nature's excessive taxes, the catastrophic losses from extreme weather, the blizzards, the droughts, the unrelenting cold rather than from human governance. These are taxes paid in livestock, in crops, in lives. This widespread hardship, however, doesn't lead to despair alone. It forces innovation, compels adaptation, and ignites a collective will to overcome. The discontent is not an idle complaint. It's a powerful catalyst for change, a driving force behind human ingenuity transforming adversity into innovation. To zastora word quae tista kidu,